Hi, my name is Pavel and I am here with another Java exercise from the book Java Software Solutions Foundations of Program Design. Oh, this is the book. And this is from chapter 4, exercise 3. We'll be doing some object orientation. We will be designing and implementing a class called car that contains instance data that represents the make, model, and year of the car. We will define the car constructor to initialize these values, and we will include getter and setter methods for all instance data. In other words, we will not work with the private data themselves. We will have getters and setter methods that will retrieve or set this data. And we will also have a toString method that returns a one-line description of the car. And of course, we will test the class by creating a driver class that we will use to instantiate and update the several car objects. Now, this basically is asking for like a one-time deal. Basically, you enter data, you press enter, data is spit out, and the program ends. What I'm going to do though, I'm going to throw in a while loop, and I will let the user to decide when to quit the program. In other words, we will be looping until the user decides to quit the program. Okay, so here's my where am I now? Here's my project, and I'm going to create a class, and I will call this one car. This will be our primary class, and now we'll just click finish, and I will create another class that is called, and I will call this CarTest, and this one will have the main method as well. This will be our driver class. Okay, so those are the two classes. I'm going to just minimize all this so we have more real estate here. So here's one class, the car. Here's the CarTest with the main method. Now our car class will obviously have the model, the make, and the year. And so let me start with those. So this will be all our private fields, and it's gonna be a private string. I'll call it model. I use the underscore in front of every private variable just to distinguish it from the arguments that we will be passing into a constructor. So we got a private string make, and our private, and it could be a string, but I'll make it an integer, and it's gonna be a year. And yep, I think that might be all. So let's do the constructor. So that's obviously going to be public. The name of the class is car, and it will accept 3 arguments. It will accept the string of make, the string of model, and the integer year. So these are the values, these are the arguments that will be passing from our CarTest driver class. So, and all these will be assigned to our private variables. But before we do that, let me do the getters first. So let's do public string, and I'll call it get model. Actually, let's start with lowercase, get model, and this will simply return our model. And we will do another one that would be a public string get make, and we will of course return the make. And lastly, string get year, and as you could get, except this is not a string, this is gonna be an integer because year is an integer, and it will return the year. Okay, so these are our getters. I can as well do the setters, and this will be our public void set model, and it will take the string of a model as an argument, and it will set it to our model. So our model will equal to the model that was as an argument. So over here we are setting a value of our model and passing the value as an argument into this set model method. So when this is executed, a model, a private model, private string model will hold whatever we will supply as an argument. And we'll do the same for the make and the year. So a public string set make, and this one will accept an argument of a string. The argument will be make, and now our make will equal to the make that is supplied. That's why I told you that I use underscore in front of my private variables of the class variables. That way I can distinguish clearly between you know, which one is my private variable and which one is an argument that I'm passing as a into the methods. Except this is of course not string. We are not returning anything. We are setting things. We are returning things in our getters and setting things in our setters. So there's no return value, so it's void. So public void set year, and as you could guess it will accept an integer of a year, and our year will equal to the year as an argument. So we have our getters and setters for all our variables. Now we can actually assign the values to them. So our model will equal to the model. Our make will equal to the make that is supplied through the constructor, and finally our year equals to year. And this is, I wrote it wrong. This is not the one with the underscore. This is the one that is supplied over here. String make, string model, and integer year. So we have our model, we have our year, and we have our make, and we have our getters and setters for all of them as well. So with that, we've and you know, let me see if they they didn't really want us to, you know, do any validation. So as it is now, if the user supplies wrong data, the program will crash because we are not validating that they actually supply an integer or that they supply in a string. So but in this particular exercise it's not needed. So this is just a exercise on creating classes and how to instantiate the objects. But you know what, let me do at least one of them. Let's say year. How about I do year as a, and I'll check something. Okay, I will validate the data at least a little bit. So how about I'll make it so the year cannot be less than 1900, and more year cannot be less than 1900 or more than 2015. All right, so how would we validate it? Well, it's actually very simple. We will I'm going to do a while loop, and it will simply say while year is less than 1900 or the year is greater than 2015. In other words, while a wrong data is being input into this application, then we will tell the user about it. So we go system.out.println, and I'll simply say please enter a valid year, and we will capture the year again. Well, now I will have to get since we are getting a user input, I need to import the scanner. So I'll have to come up here, public class, and over here above it I will do import java.util.scanner, and since I have a scanner, I can as well create the variable over here, scanner. I'll call it scan equals new scanner, and this is for the input, so it's system.in. So now we have our scanner. Now I can actually come over here and validate the data. If our year is wrong, if the user entered the wrong year, we'll tell him that please enter valid year, and we will capture the input into our scan. Next, this is a year, so this is the next integer, because year is our integer, and this will be looping until the user enters correct year. In other words, like I said, while the year is wrong, basically that's what it says, while year is less than 1900 or greater than 2015, then execute this. If the year is correct, then the loop is never executed, because this condition will be false, and it moves to the next next line after the code block, after the while loop. And the next is simply assigning the year that the user entered into a private variable year. But that won't be possible until this condition is met. As long as this condition is not met, we will be looping and asking user to enter correct year. Okay, so we have that. Since I have a scanner, I should probably close it at some point, but I'll just leave it for now. Let me just do the toString method. So public string to string, and over here what we will return simply we will return make plus an empty space plus the model and an empty space, and finally plus the, and this is a year which is an integer, so let's do the integer dot to string method, and we will return the we will pass the year to it. So our toString method will simply return the make, the model, and the year separated with a space. All right, so let's go to our driver class, which is called CarTest. And just like before, I need to import java.util and a scanner, and I'll delete this to do. And since I'm going to be, like I said, I'm going to be using a loop and letting the user decide when to quit the program, so let's do a boolean quit, and I'll initialize it to false at the beginning. And I will need a string, the model, and the make, and I will need the integer year, and it could be initialized to 0, for example. And now I'll create a scanner object so we can input some data. So scanner equals new scanner, and it's of course system.in, just like it was in the car class. And yeah, that's all. Now I'm going to create an object and I'm going to create an empty one, like with no data at all. Create empty object, because I'm going to be filling it with the data inside of the loop. You'll see how that works in just a minute. So let me just do the object. So car object equals new car, and for the first one I'm going to do an empty string. For the second one it expects a string, so it's an empty string. And as for the year, I'll enter 0. So, but we do have our object initialized to nothing really. It's empty strings and 0 for the year. So I'll do my while loop, and it's going to be while, actually not quit. In other words, while quit is false, which means that the user wants to continue to entering the data. So while the user wants to enter data, we will do a system.out.println, and we can do something like please enter the car make, model, and year. And after that, we simply will get the data from the scan object, so scan.next for the string, for the make. Then we do our model, new line, model equals scan.next, and our year will equal to scan.next integer, because again the year is an integer. So now we have our data that the user entered, and now we can assign data to object. So now we have all the remember the setters that we set for our car. This is where they come to play. Now we are going to set our car dot set make. Let's start with the make, for example. Set make, and we'll pass the make. Now our car dot set model, and we will pass the model, and our car dot set year, and we will pass the year. So after this is executed, our car is now set to some kind of some data, whatever we enter. Now, just to make sure, this is not the only way to do it. We could simply create a new object for each car that that we are entering. In fact, after this, I'll show you that way as well. So let me just finish this first. So let's do our scan dot next line, and now we have the data, we have the object, and now we can output it. So our system.out.println, here's the data you provided, and we will call the car class. Remember, by default it will go to the toString class, toString method that we created, and simply it will output the make, model, and year. So that's by default, so we call the class. And here, since this is in the loop, we will do system.out, oops, I forgot a period, .out.println, and we'll ask the user if he wants to continue. So something like press Q to quit, or any key to continue. Alright, so now we will capture the input, and you know what, I need a variable for that. Or let's say over here I will do a string, and I'll call it toQuit, and this is where we will hold the value that the user enters now. So our toQuit will equal to the scan.next. User enters Q or something else. If he enters Q, we will quit. If he enters any other key, then we will continue. So we can do our well, we can while loop. So now if our if the to quit dot equals, and it's an ignore case, because you know if it enters lowercase q or uppercase q, it should be just fine. So if it equals q, we will quit. We will set the quit equals to true. So now when it comes back to the while loop, now quit is true, so it will not execute anything within the loop and exit out of it instead. So okay, so now we do our final output, something like scan.close, of course, since we don't need it anymore, we are not entering anything. And we can do our our system.out.print line, and I'll just say goodbye. Okay, so that would be the end of the program. I have some error here. Okay, now it's correct. I forgot a period there. And assign. Alright, so this is the program. Now, since I'm using a scanner here, it's a good practice to, you know, close it at some point. So I will create a public method, public, I'll call it quit scanner, and it will simply say, you know, scanner scan.close. So this is in my car class, and this method it's a public void, of course, and when I come over to my CarTest, at the end when I close the scanner from our CarTest class, I can call the method and close the scanner for the car class as well. Now this is not really needed, nothing would happen, but I believe it's a good practice to close the scanner when we don't use it anymore. So I will call the car class dot, and it's the quit scanner method. We will simply call that, and it will close the scanner for us, and then it will say goodbye at the end. Okay, so right, let me run that. Let's see if that runs correctly. What do I get? Still loading. All right, console. Please are. All right, so BMW and space and make I don't know 1 2 3 and a model car. Oh, I got the instructions wrong. Please enter the car. Oh no, car make BMW model 1 2 3 and a year, I don't know, 2014. And it says, okay, here's the data you provided, and simply repeats what I entered. Now it asks if I want to quit. I press any other key other than Q, so it keeps going. Please enter car. I say Mercedes, and I don't know, Benz. And let me try 2016, which is outside of the year. We only expect the year to be less than 2015, and it says please enter valid year. So if it's less than 1900, like 1899, it says again please enter valid year. So if I enter 1900, it accepts it. So now I press Q to quit, and it says goodbye. So yeah, this is a fairly simple program. It seems to be working correctly. Now, like I said before, we don't need to do it this way, you know, because right now we have one object for all these cars. For whatever car we created, we simply are changing the data within that object. We could create a different, you know, different object for each of the cars directly in the while loop, and let me show you how to do that. So the first thing we need to do, I'll simply copy this this line. I'll delete the comment, and I'll pass it after the user enters make, model, and year. We will create the object, and we will pass directly to the make, the model, and the year. So now it will correspond with the argument in the constructor. So we created our object. Now we don't need these methods anymore. We are not assigning the values through the methods. Now we are assigning them through the constructor. Now we have this. Remember, the scanner is a method within the car class. I don't have an access to it right now because the object was created within the car loop. Within the while loop, and it's valid only within the while loop. This is how the creation of the variables work. If you create them within a block of code, that's the block of code. The variable is valid. Outside of it, it's not visible, basically. So what I can do, let me see if that's gonna work. I can make it maybe static. Nah, because this is a object, I would have to make this static as well. And I don't know. Nah, that's not gonna work. So I'm not gonna even bother with that really. I'm just gonna delete it because we don't really need it. This is a small program, and once the user quits, we don't need to close the scanner for this particular in this particular exercise anyway. So we have our object already created, and now we're going to output it. So if I run it now, let's see if that's gonna have the same results. And so I'll enter a model, I don't know, BMW, and let's make it 1, 2, 3 for the model, and I don't know, 2014, and it says OK. I press F to continue. Any other key other than Q makes it continue. So I'll enter something for the make, something for the model, and I'll enter a wrong year, let's say 2016. And it does not give us a wrong data. It actually accepts it, which is wrong. Remember, we are in our car class. Let me just move this. We are validating the year. So what I have to do here, I have to, instead of assigning my variable directly, like we do the model and make, since I am validating it, I simply call the set year method and pass the year that is from the constructor into it. So now it will come over here and validates the date or the year that we entered and let us know if it's correct or not. So let me see if that's gonna work. Okay, so car make, so again BMW model 1, 2, 3 and 2016, and it says please enter valid year. So 2015, okay, that was one. Okay, so I want to continue. I'll enter something and another invalid year, let's say 1899, and it says again enter valid year. 1900 is the minimum, so it accepts it, and when I press Q it says goodbye and quits. So this is the way how to do it with the object creation within the loop. Each time we loop, we create a new object, and with the data that we pass directly into the constructor, instead of before we use the setter methods to set the values to an empty object, because we only passed empty strings and 0 as a year. Alright, so I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Take care.